Okay. So today we are going to study the BCG matrix, which is basically studying market share, market growth rate, and sales growth rate. Secondly, we'll be studying the customer lifetime value and customer acquisition cost, which are the two key matrices that finally we had to study, based on which all the previous concepts were studied. So there will be several questions I'll be asking today, and I hope you all will give me quick answers. How do you differentiate market share and market growth? How do you differentiate market share and market growth? Okay. So market share is for the company, and market growth is for the market itself. Fine, exactly right. So tell me, what is the relationship between market growth and sales growth? Okay, let's put it the other way around. Is there any direct relationship between both? Does market growth imply that sales grows? So Pradeep, you said directly proportional. That's not right. There can be several instances where the market grows and still the sales does not grow. Okay, and there can be instances where sales grows and market does not grow. So tell me, what happens to market share? What happens to market share if sales grows but market does not grow? And what happens to market share if market grows and sales does not grow? Okay. So in the first case, market share increases, and in the second case, market share decreases. So next question, to keep market share constant, how much should sales grow? In proportion to market growth? What proportion to market growth? Good question, Saurabh. Why do you want to keep market share constant? Okay. So I can give you examples of why you want to keep market share constant, and I have been in such an industry. I've been in the tobacco industry for a very large part of my career, and there is a rule there that the Monopolistic and Restrictive Trade Practices Act (MRTP) comes into play if any company has over 85% market share. Now, the main company in India is ITC, and you have some competitors, one of them being Godfrey Phillips. Then you had the Golden Tobacco and a couple of small players. So ITC wants to always keep its market share constant at 85. They can easily go beyond that, but going beyond is disruptive for them, and obviously they wouldn't want to lose what they can capture. So for several years they have been always fighting to maintain market share at 85% or slightly lower than that. Okay, so that's an example to you, Saurabh, why you want to keep market share constant. But I've still not got the answer. How much should sales grow in terms of market growth to keep market share constant? So last question, think again. To keep market share constant, how much should sales grow? Yes, so Saurabh, you are right. It should grow at the same pace as the market. Same percentage growth or degrowth in market growth rate as sales growth rate implies market share is constant. So if you read it again, you will find that there is no big science in this. If the market has grown from 100 to 200 and you were 20% of the 100 in the first year, then if you also grow by the same ratio, that is twice, that you become 40 out of 200, so your market share is constant. And if the market drops from 100 to 50 and you were 20 out of 100 and you also drop from 20 to 10, your market share again stays constant. In the first case, if the market does not grow, it is 100, and you have grown from 20 to 40, so your market share has increased to 40% from 20%. In the second case, if market has grown from 100 to 200 and you remain at 20, then your market share reduces from 20 to 10%. Okay. Now, Shabir has asked how it affects business strategy, and in fact that was going to be my next question. How does it impact business strategy? I am in fact going to show you an Excel file, Deepak, so that you can understand this, but I was just putting a few things first so that we start thinking about this rather than directly seeing a solved example. Probably all through this course I've been advising everyone, do it on your own, because in a solved example it suddenly looks extremely easy, but these are some key concepts which I've seen people even after 20-30 years in marketing have not been able to understand, and they have a pretty large impact. So that was the reason, but I will show you the Excel now, and you'll see in that it looks pretty simple. So this is the file, and rather than showing you the answer straight away, I have shown you, this is all fictitious data, this is not true data. I have assumed that in 2012 this was the smartphone sold, and so on in 2013 and 14. So if you see the market share of Samsung is 50%, because it is 2 lakhs out of 4 lakhs. What is the formula we use for market share percentage? So it is company sale divided by total sale and the whole into 100. That is the market share in percentage. Anybody has any doubt here? So this total is simply a total of all these. Okay. In general reality, what is going to happen is that when you do market sizing, yeah, Shabir, I was coming to that only. When you do market sizing by several different methods, you try to come to what is the total size. And since you know your own figures, you get an indication of what is your market share. Then there are associations many times of automobile association or a mobile phone association, which tends to compile all the data of most of the bigger players and gives you such data as well. Okay, so you generally have an idea of what your market share is. Right now, like Micromax and Samsung, the two of them seem to fight on market share. Another important thing to note here, that there are two kinds of market sizes. Okay, so the market size can be in units and the market size can be in revenue. Okay, can you tell me the difference? What is the difference between market size in units and market size in revenue? Market size unit versus market size revenue. Yeah, so units are the product count sold. So this is an answer which one of you have given. Units in number of units sold, while revenue in how much they are sold for. In other words, market size in revenue is equal to market size in units into average price per unit. You have in the telecom industry, you have something called an ARPU. That is average revenue per unit. Okay. Any confusion on this? Anybody who has any confusion on this, please feel free to ask. Average price per unit or average revenue per unit. For example, as I said, in the telecom, how much money does a subscriber pay on a monthly basis, that they call as the average revenue per unit. And if you look at the Samsung and Micromax thing, suppose Samsung sells 1 lakh units and the average price of their units is 20,000. So their market size and revenue is 20,000 lakhs. Whereas if Micromax also sells 1 lakh units and their average price per unit is 7,000, then their market size in terms of revenue is only 7,000 lakhs. Okay. So one is 70 crores versus the other one, which becomes 2,000 crores. So whereas in terms of market size, in terms of units, both of them are competing with each other. When it comes to market size in terms of revenue, Samsung is way ahead. This will also give you some indication that Apple in terms of units is one of the smaller players in the world. But when it comes to the revenue part, then they become a much bigger player, because their average price realized can go up to even 40,000 rupees in a country. So for every Micromax, for every 8 Micromax phones sold, 1 Apple sold will give the same revenue share. Okay. So that's the kind of thing that we need to understand. Clear? Anybody has any doubts? Okay, so market position is dependent on both, and that is what we are going to try and understand today. For example, it's a good question you asked, Manjunath, that if you look at Apple today, they are very well placed as far as their revenue is concerned. But the growth of the industry is dependent on the number of users as well. And since Apple does not use the Android base, it uses its own iOS. Therefore, unless it has a threshold number of users, people will not make apps based for the Apple. And if you look at the PC industry and the laptop industry, everybody has almost acknowledged always that the Apple product is far superior to the Microsoft product. Train break. Okay. So, despite Apple having a much superior operating system, because the numbers were lesser, this train really doesn't want me to speak. This train driver is completely averse to marketing. Okay, so coming back, it's almost said that Microsoft has grown because of piracy. The reason that they just didn't look at it much, they only created a hue and cry, but they never looked at it much, is the reason that everybody got the Windows very easily and it kept growing. So if you see, the viruses are not made for the Apple because there is no viability in creating a virus for a operating system which has less number of units. So despite a good product, despite very high margins, they lost out. And you can see a repeat of that as a possibility in the smartphone segment, that despite iPhone having the best name and brand, and you just did the NCDVs and all that, and everybody found the iPhone better, the other players may still grow just because Android becomes a much bigger operating system. So despite the fact that iOS may be a better operating system, since it does not allow others to use the same, it has to have its own threshold units in the market for app developers to look at iOS. Already, if you see around, when you talk of app development, and if you look at anybody who's hired for app development, everybody talks about Android development. Nobody talks of iOS development very easily. So it's almost a corollary today that if an app has to be made, it should first be made for the Android and then it should be made for the iOS. Unless, of course, there will be exceptions where you have a target audience which may be only Apple users. Okay, so I think you can understand now why both are important, the units as well as the revenue. Does that answer the question? Okay. So coming back to the slide here, we're all clear on market share. Anybody who did not understand how market share is calculated? Okay, so quickly tell me, what is the market growth rate from 2012 to 2013? Okay, and then from 2013 to 2014? So market growth rate is difference in market size divided by market size of base year, the whole into 100. So if we take 12 to 13, it is 800,000 minus 400,000 divided by 400,000 into 100, which is equal to 100%. Okay, and then I asked you, what is it from 13 to 14? So how much did you get? Yeah, 150%. Okay. I am putting down the formulas again over here for the simple reason that many times in mental mathematics we just tend to see things and get a wrong impression. Okay, so always good to put this like small school kids. So it is 20 lakhs minus 4 lakhs, sorry, 8 lakhs divided by 8 lakhs into 100, which is 12 lakhs divided by 8 lakhs, that is 150%. What is it from 2012 to 2014? 2012 to 2014, 20 lakhs minus 4 lakhs divided by so Satish, when you say 12 is base year, it depends from which year to which year. Second one I asked you 13 to 14. So 13 becomes the base year. Now I am asking you 12 to 14. So 12 to 14, 14 becomes the base year. Yeah, you can say previous year, but I would say base year, because if you say 14 to 13, okay, there can also be you can say what was the degrowth in the market from Y to X, right? So if you're looking at retrospectives, you can have that, but generally it will always be looking forward. So you can say previous year. So for simplicity purpose, you can always say the end year minus the previous year divided by the previous year into 100. Suppose this end year was 20,000. So do you do 40,000 minus 20,000 or still remain as 20,000 minus 40,000? Did you get my question? Instead of 8 lakhs, suppose it had become 2 lakhs in the next year. What does that imply? Instead of 8 lakhs, if it had become 2 lakhs, then what is the market growth rate? Give me the number, please. If it had become 2 lakhs, what is the market growth rate? Minus 50%. So Kulbhushan, it's not 100, it's minus 50%. 2 lakhs minus 4 lakhs gives you minus 2 lakhs divided by the base year of 4 lakhs. So these are the different ones I am showing you because we tend to keep confusing. The base year is 4 lakhs. When the market degrows, we tend to always put a bigger figure here which is positive, or we tend to, do the minus in the manner that you always get a positive number. So this is how it's to be. Just keep it simple, it will always work out. So that's market growth rate. In the example given here, the market growth rate 100%, 150% and 400%. And similarly, you can find out the company's sales growth rate. And now if you compare, because the growth rate here was 150 versus 100 is market growth rate, so the market share has gone up. Okay. In the next instance, although the sales growth has still gone up by 60%, it is lesser than the market growth rate of 150%, so the market share has gone down to 40. Is that getting clear now? And that is the importance, that if market share drops down to something like 0.25 or 5 or 6 or single digits, then despite the fact that you are growing in numbers, you could still become extinct. So if you look at this brand, it has still grown from 8,000 to 12,000 or 80,000 to 1.2 lakhs. That is a good healthy sales growth rate of 50%. And despite a sales growth rate of 50%, it has dropped market share from 10 to 6. So from double digits, it's become single digits. So things like Nokia and all, they suddenly become non-existent because they become much lesser. So despite the fact that they are growing, they are not growing as fast as the market is growing, and therefore their presence is continuously decreasing. Is that clear? So your assignment for today will be based on this, and I'll go back to my presentation. Okay, so coming back to this, we're all clear on market share, market growth rate and sales growth rate. Now I'll show you the BCG matrix, which is based on market share and market growth rate. What does BCG stand for? Is my screen not visible? Okay. Right. So BCG stands for Boston Consulting Group, as Pradeep has said. And therefore, if you ask me why this arrow is put on the left, whereas traditionally it is always on the right for the X and Y axis, then my answer will be go ask BCG. Their matrix, their arrows, why they are doing it, I don't know. Maybe for all of us to discuss and remember that BCG matrix has this arrow which is the other way around. Okay, and market growth is like that. So some questions not to be asked. It was purely their arrows and they put it the way they wanted it. Now let's understand what stars, question marks, cash cows and dogs is. So in terms of market share and market growth rate, what is question mark? What is question mark? What kind of market growth rate, high or low? What kind of market growth rate, high or low? Yeah, so market growth rate high and market share low. Okay. So as I showed you in that Excel, this brand Nokia is growing every year, 50,000 to 80,000 to 1,20,000. Healthy growth, 60% sales growth, 50% sales growth, and yet the market share is continuously dropping from 12.5 to 10 to 6. Okay, so if you look at this matrix now, despite the fact that their sales is growing at a healthy 50%, 60% every year, they are moving into the question mark category and may probably die. Okay, so question mark is low market share, high market growth rate. Please remember this arrow is the other way around. Traditionally, X going like that and Y going like that. We would have said question mark means high market share and high market growth rate, but that's not the way it is. Question mark is low market share in high market growth rate segment. What about stars? So stars are high market share, high market growth rate. This is where everybody likes to be. So every new organization would like to put a product in the category of stars. That is something in which market rate is continuously growing and the market share is also high because it delivers higher amount of revenues and a high potential. That's why they are called the stars. Then you have cash cows. Cash cows are high market share in a low market growth rate category. So cash cows are like your Alto or Maruti 800 or whatever, which are basically towards the end of the product life cycle. So it links the product life cycle here. Since they are towards saturation, they are towards the end of the product life cycle. So you have a market growth rate which is very low, but the market share is still very high. Why do we call them cash cows? Why do we call them cash cows? Why do we call them cash cows? Exactly. Return on investment is very high. They are generating a lot of revenue because of a high market share from a loyal segment. Okay. As long as they exist, they will deliver a lot of money and eventually it keeps giving you a lot of cash. So you say milk it as much as possible till it exists, because finally it will die. Then you have a fourth category which we call the dogs, which is low market share and low market growth rate. So again, it's towards the end of its product life cycle. It also has a low market share, but we still have them around. Why do we have them around? Why don't we just drop this product and allow it to get finished? Why do we have them around? Yeah, ambassador cars, the Maruti Omni. So we have them around because, yeah, maybe the Xylo also. We have them around only because they do not make you bleed. So they are like loyal, but they do not make you bleed. The day they give you a negative return, these products will be stopped. Just because they do enough to sustain themselves, so they are just left around. That's the purpose of these. So my next question is, if a startup is there, where will its product be? If any startup is there, which part of this matrix will that product be? So you all have a unanimous, okay, no, you can't have dog because nobody is going to put a product which is in a product life cycle which is dying. Okay, everyone who have written dog, that is not possible because nobody starts with any product which is in a low market growth stage. That is, any product which is already dying, you won't put it there. So if you have an ambassador car, you're not going to create another ambassador car sort of thing at this time and expect it to just hang around like a dog. So they will all be in question mark. Deepak, it can't be stars and question mark because in the beginning it has to be a question mark before it reaches a star. Even if it's a new product with no competition anywhere, till it does not establish market share, it's always in a low market share category. So it's always in the star zone. Okay, a new product will always be here. And that probably will give you the answer of why BCG kept the arrows like this. Because if you see any presentation, people like to show themselves here. And because for a new product, there is no other way to show it here except by making this arrow this way. This is the way it happens. I think you will get your logic now. So every new product will start from question mark. The aim is to make it a star. It has to eventually become a cash cow or a dog, but the idea is that it becomes a cash cow so that the money generated here is used to fund new question marks. I'll repeat again. You always start with products which are in the question mark zone. The aim is to make them stars where you have high investment but you also have high revenues. As it goes towards the end of its product life cycle, you expect them to become a cash cow which generates the money to create new question marks and repeat this cycle. So you want the cycle like this. Some of them could become dogs and die, but you always want the cycle like this. New product launch, 10,000 units sold, and it has no competitor. Then market share is monopoly. Can it be in star? Would someone like to give an answer to that? This is a question that has been put up by Deepak. A new product launched, has 10,000 units sold. It does not have a competitor. Market share is monopoly, so 100%. Can it be called a star? So I think for this, I just read a very nice joke. I hope nobody is a Rahul Gandhi fan here, but this was the joke. So Modi asks Rahul Gandhi that if I give you 10 apples, how many apples can you eat on an empty stomach? And Rahul Gandhi obviously says 10. And Modi laughs at him and says, no, you can only eat one, because as soon as you eat the first one, your stomach is no more empty. Now, this was enough to explain Deepak's question, but the joke goes like that Rahul then goes to Digvijay Singh and says, I have heard a very nice joke from Mr. Modi. So Digvijay says, tell me. So he says that how many apples can you eat on an empty stomach? And Digvijay says 6. So Rahul Gandhi says, you're a fool. If you had told 10, then I would have told you a nice joke. So that's the way it goes. Deepak, I think you got your answer. When it starts, it has to be in question mark, at least till you say that 10,000 units get sold. The other answer which has also been given by Mallikarjun here is that if you are in 100% monopoly, then do you really have stars out there? Because competition has either not come in for the reason that it is a licensed or controlled industry, which is there in our electricity departments in most states, but you still don't call them stars. It's just lack of competition. And secondly, if it's a high market growth rate domain, even if you are first, the others are going to follow very, very fast. And therefore, again, market shares will come into picture. Okay, so temporarily you could move into star or something, but it's not going to remain long. I'll give you another example which I think all of you have seen. The first guys to start advertising and making everyone known about the LED lights in India was Cisca. So Cisca LEDs is what came out and said we launched this. And they made the market for everyone else to take. And till date, Cisca has not sold as many as the bigger players like Bajaj and Philips and all these guys who came out quickly with their LED lights have sold. Okay, so I think you've got your answers there. So any questions on the BCG matrix? I am putting the slide which shows generally what stars, cash cows, question marks and dogs are. Any questions on this before I move ahead? So these are whatever you are going to be learning today is the jargon that is going to be used around in marketing. People don't talk so much about NCDs and other things, but they will talk about segmentation, and people will keep talking about these things: market shares and market size and sales growth and so on. And then the key matrices which we will study now, which is the customer lifetime value and the customer acquisition cost. So any doubt on this, please feel free to ask. This is an area where you can play around with maths a lot and see how growth and degrowth and all these things affect the others. So it's not only important to have high sales growth, but it's also important to keep an eye on how the market is growing or degrowing so that you know which category you belong to. So my next question now is that if you're comparing brands, is it possible that those brands can be in all the 4 segments? If you are comparing brands, is it possible that different brands can take up all the 4 segments? Different models of the same brand. And somebody has put Maruti. So Surya, can you explain to us the Maruti thing? And Mallikarjun can probably explain how different models of the same brand. I think it's the same thing that we are talking there, like Maruti. So can we have Alto, Ritz, and Swift, WagonR in 4 different segments at the same time? As a comparison to each other. Okay, so let's go back to that matrix of ours. So if you're ever looking at it real time with respect to a segment, I took all those brands of hatchbacks. So we have to first look at market growth rate and then market share. So can you have high and low market growth rate? Can you have high and low market growth rate at the same time for the same segment? I'll put my question again here. For the same segment, can you have high or low market growth rate at the same time. So you can't have both at the same time, which means either it is high or it is low. So which segments will be used? So which segments will be used depending on market share. Which part of BCG will be used depending on market share. Not understood? Let me go back. So if we are saying market growth can either be high or it can be low. So for a segment, if it is high, all the products will have to be, they'll have to be stars or question marks. You can't have cash cows and dogs. Another train driver who doesn't like marketing. I stay in Ghaziabad, Pradeep, and I stay in Nehru Nagar, close to a railway line. Yeah. So coming back to this, if the segment is high market growth rate, all the products will either be stars or question marks. They cannot be cash cows and dogs. And if the segment is low market growth rate, then you can have only cash cows or dogs. You cannot have stars and question marks. So give me a product which is in high market growth rate. LED TV. So LED TV, all the brands, whether it is Sharp, whether it is Sony, whether it is Samsung, Videocon, all of them can either be stars or question marks depending on their market share. You cannot have a cash cow or dog there. Okay? Then someone wrote automatic cars over here. Automatic cars is currently growing slow in India. So it is a low market growth rate, but it has the potential of becoming a very high market growth rate, and hence people are entering into that. Okay. Since it's a very new segment, we will still term it as high market growth rate because of the potential and the numbers. I'll explain that again to you because it may sound confusing. Suppose we say that the number of automatic cars that sold was 1,000 in 2012, and then in the next year the number of cars that sold was 4,000. So what is the market growth rate? 4,000 minus 1,000 divided by 1,000, which is 300%. So despite the fact that the numbers are still very small, the market growth rate is very high. So whenever you see new products that enter, they will always be in high market growth rate because the jump in sales brings in very huge percentages. Okay, but when we say that hatchbacks have sold 1 lakh or 10 lakhs in 2011, and then they sold 10 lakhs 20,000 in 2012, then the market growth rate is just like 0.2%. So we'll say they are in low market growth rate, which means that the segment is eventually going to die and it will become cash cows and dogs, right? So to remain in high market growth rate, we will give a ballpark figure of at least 20%. Like hatchbacks right now in the country are growing at the rate of 20% plus. So even if they sell 1 million in 1 year, they will sell 1.2 million in the next, and then 1.44 million in the next, and so on. And therefore, they will remain a high market growth rate segment till this keeps happening. And because it will remain a high market growth rate segment, you will keep having companies coming in with new product lines and new features and new things in this, because they want to have stars in that category. As soon as it becomes a dying segment, then people will stop investing into it. Is that clear? Okay. So I hope you'll be able to solve the BCG questions easily now. To repeat once again, you will have only one quadrant at a time which will work. Either stars and question mark or cash cow and dog. So if it's a high market growth rate segment, stars and question marks. If it's a low market growth rate segment, cash cows and dogs. At the same time, there was a question by some people that for the same company, can we use all the 4 quadrants? So yeah, so at a certain point of time, if you want to simply position all the products of the same company and see where they stand, then you could have products in all the quadrants. So we'll say hatchbacks are a growing market segment. Therefore, you could say that the you have stars and question marks in the Ritz could be a question mark, the Desire could be a star, like that. And then if you say that the low market growth rate segment is the small minivans, then you could say that at the same time the Maruti van is positioned in dog. In the 800cc segment, which is not growing, low market growth segment, but has reasonably high market share, so you could put an alto over here. Okay, so that way you can position all your products of one company in different segments at one time. What will be the advantage of this? Why do we want to do that? What will be the application of trying to put all our products into the BCG matrix at one time and seeing where we stand? Yeah, so as Surya has said, focus on stars, see if the question marks are worth investing in, and do they have the potential to become stars, or is it better to exit? See which are the cash cows which are delivering money, and is there a way to increase the product life cycle of the cash cow for some more time? And then look at dogs, and they are just there. They're just around, they will die on their own. So dogs are which you don't even need to look at. Question marks are important to see whether they are worth putting more money or not. So if you look at a Tata, their telecom business has sucked out a lot of money for that group. And whether they use a Tata Docomo or whatever, they keep losing money and remain as question marks. They were never able to create good market share there. So is it worthwhile for Tata to even continue in the telecom business? That is a question. Okay, they have stars, they have cash cows, they have dogs, they have businesses across. And that's how you see it. So it answers the question. Let me repeat. You put all your products at one time across these so that you can focus on the stars. You can review whether question marks should be further invested in or they should allow to die. You can forget the dogs. And you should look at how you can increase the product life cycle, if possible, a little for the cash cow, so that it generates some more money for some more time. So the Alto 800 is increasing the product life cycle of the Maruti 800 with some modifications, so that that segment, which is a cash cow, keeps delivering cash for some more time. Okay, so what happens to question mark if you do not put money into it? It's a good question, Pradeep, and it will clarify whether you understood what I've been telling earlier. Yes, it has to die because question mark is in high market growth rate segment. Therefore, it cannot become a cash cow or dog. It will simply die. A star can move from star to question mark and then die. A star can never die directly. A cash cow can die off or move from cash cow to dog and then die. But dogs and question marks can only die. Are you getting the answer? Question marks attempt to become stars. If not, they will die. Stars can never die directly. They will always become question marks and then die. Cash cows could die off immediately after cash cows. Dogs could just die off. Dogs will never become cash cows. Cash cows could become dogs and then die. Yeah, so question mark, Kulbhushan, every time is attempting to become a star and it can keep on making its modifications, new models, new versions with the objective of becoming a star. So that's what they'll all keep doing. So Tata ties up with Docomo. It did pick up market share for some time when it was the first to launch the per second rate. But after a initial quick growth, again it started dying. Could not sustain. Yes, cable network to DTH, I won't count them as similar product. They, direct to home is a very different technology than simple the cable network. So DTH has actually replaced the cable network and the cable network has died. So Flipkart, Amazons of Indian market are currently stars because they are in high market growth rate and they have good high market shares in that. You can probably put a many other e-commerce sites, maybe Shopclose, Paytm and all, somewhere closer to the question mark category. We are not discussing profitability right now. This has nothing to do with profitability. So there can be stars and question marks even if the whole segment is not making profit. Yes, that's a good example, Kulbhushan. The scooter market in its earlier version, where the Chetaks and the Vespas and all were there, was dying, and it became a cash. It was a star, a big star with a lot of premium on it. Then it became a cash cow. It got ready to die, but even from cash cow, new technology, new product innovations, and the Hondas and all these have brought it back again to a star category. Yeah, you can have dogs which are not cash cows. In fact, dogs are not supposed to be cash cows. You have like the Ambassador, you have the Maruti Omni, these are dogs. Okay, so I think everyone's got a hang of market share, market growth rate, sales growth rate, the BCG matrix, and the different parts of it. Important things from the perspective of how markets and the economies grow and how the companies need to look at their products. What parameters make the product to change phase? A question by Manjunath to everyone. And yeah, you have your answers. Competition could make you change. That competition could make you change due to change of model, like e-commerce has done. It could make you change because of a change of technology, like the LEDs and all have come in. And so it can be technology, the business model itself, change in demand structures because of the economy, changing generations. There are millions of parameters we can discuss there. So basically, you have to just keep an eye out on what is happening to the society, what is happening to the segments, what is growing in demand, what is dropping in demand, and being at the right place with the right products at the right time. Okay, so as I said, market growth rate 20% and above, we can call it a high market growth rate. Market shares, again, we can say, again, it depends on the number of products. Anything above 20% is definitely a high market share. But in the bracket of 10 to 20%, it will depend on the number of products that we have there. So if we have 10 products and many of them lie in 10 to 20%, we'll say all are in high market share. But if we have 4 or 5 and we have 3 in 20% above, the others below 20%, then they will become question marks, while as the others. So relative to each other, you can have a little bit. Anything less than 10% is definitely treated as a question mark. Okay, anything less than 10% is definitely treated as low market share. 10 to 20% depends on the number of products in that segment. Anything above 20% is always treated as high market share. In terms of market growth rate, generally anything above 20% is high market growth rate. Okay, so if anybody has any question, please ask me. Otherwise, I'll move ahead. I've already used up 1.5 hours. Yeah. Okay, so should I go on? This debate can keep going on then. It's interesting to get a hang of it. So we'll move ahead to customer lifetime value and customer acquisition cost. Critical concepts, but something which I can cover in 10 minutes now, because with all the background concepts in mind, this becomes pretty easy. So look at this slide and suppose I say this is A, this is B, and this is C. Then looking at this definition, what is the formula for customer lifetime value? In terms of A, B, and C, what is customer lifetime value? Please read this and answer my question. In terms of A, B, and C, what is customer lifetime value? Okay, so many of you got it right. It's B into C minus A. So B into C is the total revenue that is expected from the customer minus the cost that is spent on acquiring the customer. So the lifetime value that is got from the customer is B into C minus A. What is the difference between CLV and NCDV? What is the difference between CLV and NCDV? Yeah, so everybody's got that right. NCDV is the value derived by the customer from the product, and CLV is the money that the company gets from the customers. Okay, so I didn't understand, Verinder, what is A minus B into C? CLV will be the total revenue generated by the customer minus the cost acquired, that is B into C minus A. Okay, so simple concept. Now look at these three things. The cost to acquire the customer. So is this a one-time cost or is it a recurring cost? customer acquisition cost or cost to acquire the customer. Is this recurring or is it one time? So I just got a new product idea. Some one of you are all techies. Even on things like WebEx, you should create some fight zone where people who have two different answers, they can fight over there, and whoever is the winner, we can say their answer is right. Okay, so this is not a recurring cost, this is a one-time cost. It's like the same Apple example that we took earlier. Once the customer has been acquired, then the customer is already there. Okay, so the cost to acquire the customer is a one-time cost. So the money spent by Sunstone in getting you in as a student is spent once. That's the cost to acquire the customer, and then there is no other cost. Where does the remaining cost go? There is a cost of the faculty, there is a cost of operations. Where does that cost go? Where is it included here? Saurabh has a good question there. We have to re-enroll in L2, L3, so recurring. So it's not recurring. You only have a lesser CLV or a higher CLV. So if you are in L1, your number of months is maybe 4 to 6. If you are L1 to L2, your number of months are maybe 8 to 12. If you are L1 plus L2 plus L3, your number of months are maybe 12 to 15. So once a customer, how many ever products you buy, the acquiring cost is not there again. Only the CLV can go up or down depending on how long you stick around. Yes. So that's the question even I was asking, where is the operational cost and the retention cost? So just look at this word here. Look at this word here. We are talking of annual profit or annual margin, which means there is already a cost which is inbuilt here. It is the revenue minus the cost spent. So that can be the retention cost, operation cost, or whatever. So that's why I took up this point that the second is not just the revenue. We are not talking of the 55,000 that you spent. We are talking of the margin in that 55,000 after the cost to acquire. Therefore, if this margin is low and this period is low and the cost is high, then eventually there will be a loss. And that also explains how the e-commerce business is running right now. So they are incurring a cost to acquire the customer. Then they are also incurring a loss in every time they do a sale. So you have a Paytm which is spending hugely on acquiring. Then it gives a 10% cashback to everybody, whatever they do, wherever, in matter of whether the margin is 10% or not. So every time the person spends, the CLV keeps going in negative. Okay, and the logic of that is that right now they're increasing market share only, and that's the focus. And because the annual profit after a few years will become positive, and the number of years may just continue to be there. So over 20 years, maybe you will have a positive CLV. Okay. So that is where the time part also comes into CLV. Annually, you have a negative or a loss for the first 3-4 years. Then you have a profit for the next 6 years. And because the customer is there for the entire 10 years, therefore B into C eventually is a number which is positive. Again, deduct the first time cost to acquire the customer, and if overall you still have a positive value, then your marketing has been on the right track. Okay, any questions here? So in the most basic form, CLV is expressed as the annual marginal contribution into the number of expected years of purchasing life minus the acquisition cost. Right? Now, when you have M into L, it is just a summation of the margins into years. So you can have year 1 as minus 20, year 2 as 0, then year 3 as plus 20, year 4 as plus 30, year 5 as plus 60, and so on. So you can have the expected years broken into each year with annual marginal contribution of each year, or you can just have 9 years with the average annual marginal contribution which is calculated over that 9-year period minus the first time acquisition cost of the customer. So this is all that you're going to keep discussing in your group assignment now, because in the group assignment primarily you're going to be finding the CLV and the CAC first. After that, you are going to give me a redesigned marketing plan. And in the redesigned marketing plan, I would like to again see how the CLV and the CAC is being affected. That's going to be your group assignment. The grading of the group assignment will be done in the presentations that you do next Saturday. I am expecting all the groups to complete their presentation, 10 minutes per group probably, but we'll come to know as soon as you will tell us who is presenting, which we'll discuss over WhatsApp. And you can submit, any one group member can then submit after the presentation, and the grading will go to all the group members. You have a group feedback form over there. So if any group member has not done anything, you can show that in the group feedback form, and by default everybody gets the group score. But if you all have all particularly pointed out that someone has not worked at all, then we have the right to deduct the marks for that person there. Okay. So before I end the session, let's discuss a little more on the acquisition cost. The acquisition cost is the actual cost spent in acquiring a new customer. Okay. So suppose we have this digital marketing concept. There is a pay per click, and then all the people who come in as leads They go through a long engagement process which has emails and calls and all those things. So all the cost put together divided by the number of customers who actually bought, that is the cost of acquiring. Okay, so it's not the cost of one person, it's 1 lakh rupees spent to get 10,000 leads. Then out of those 10,000 leads, 5,000 move to step 2, then 2,000 move to step 1. Overall, you spent 10 lakhs. You ended up getting 10 customers. So the cost of acquiring each customer through that campaign was 1 lakh. This is one marketing campaign to the other. Even without running a marketing campaign, you could have customers coming in. So there are customers who come in at zero acquisition cost. They just keep coming in without any marketing campaign. So acquisition cost is basically a function of marketing alone. What is your marketing spend versus how many new customers that you got because of that marketing spend. The variations here, you can look at each of the campaigns separately. You can look at each of the methods separately. For example, from telemarketing, what was our customer acquisition cost? From newspaper ads, what was our customer acquisition cost? From television advertising, what was our customer acquisition cost? And therefore see that which of the methods has given you good results at a lower cost. Secondly, the things that one needs to remember here is that when you exhaust a given method, then you have to probably spend more because you still want more customers. So if we say LinkedIn is a good route for us, you all done your STP and then you did your personal, you did your sales assignments, and many of you use the digital mode with LinkedIn being an important part to get across to the right target audience of IT personnel for us. But then LinkedIn has its own limitation, and once that is exhausted, you have to start looking at alternate methods which may be costlier, but you still want to acquire more customers. So you look at various different parameters for customer acquisition cost to first see which of the methods gives the best result, then to see when this method has, you've taken out all the juice from this method, then which is the next best method, which costs a little more but still gives results. Then you keep looking at the expected CLV for your product and keep ensuring that the CAC is less than the expected marginal contribution into the expected period that the customer stays, so that effectively your CLV always remains positive. If your CLV is negative, it means you are in losses. If your CLV is in positive, it means your marketing is on track and you continue to profit. What is CSE? Did I use that term? It was CAC, customer acquisition cost. I didn't use CSE. Okay. So then you have these other ways of acquiring big number of customers, like you see all these affiliations or co-branding. So when credit cards say that we won't charge a surcharge if you go to an Indian Oil petrol pump, you're basically saying that HDFC company who's issuing those credit cards is trying to get hold of all the customers of Indian Oil, because the Indian Oil people will buy the HDFC credit card which has no surcharge for their usage there, And similarly, Indian Oil is getting all those customers of HDFC who already have that credit card and now can use it on the Indian Oil petrol pump and therefore get no service charge there. So such co-brandings are ways of getting bulk customers for each other. Mergers, acquisitions are based on customers mostly. A very important example, the reason Facebook bought WhatsApp was basically customer acquisition, because in that product there was nothing else which could be valued at $19 billion except the fact that they had so many users that per user $19 billion worked out to only $42, and therefore the kind of valuation came in. Okay. Any questions still here? I still have one very, very important thing to communicate, which I will do when I have the attention of all of you. It's been a reasonably long session. Okay. So the last part which I want all of you to please pay attention to, we are talking of actual cost spent. So the real cash spent and not the opportunity cost. Please understand, the actual cost spent and not the opportunity cost. So I'll ask you a question. Suppose we say that you went to buy a shirt and you got a buy one get one free offer on shirt. MRP 300. And a new customer came in only because this offer or this marketing campaign was run. So what is the customer acquisition cost? What is the customer acquisition cost? Please think again. So CAC is not related to MRP. Absolutely true. 150 is opportunity cost. As I said, do not look at opportunity cost. You look at the actual cost. Okay, so Mallikarjun is coming closer now. Is it the cost of 2 shirts? Because you have got the price of one. The MRP was 300. You have recovered 300. It is only one that you are giving free. So the customer acquisition cost is only that cost of making that one shirt, not the MRP of that shirt, but the making of that one shirt. And generally the cost of making is only 20% or less than that of the MRP. Okay, the cost of making actual product cost is generally less than 20% of MRP. This is because there are lots of taxes, there is a lot of marketing expense, there is a lot of distribution expense, operational costs and other things. Therefore, giving out a product of your own is the cheapest customer acquisition cost because the perceived value is very high, whereas your own cost is extremely low. Yeah, so it is the cost that is actually just paid. So when you see this, now you'll understand when ShopClues says 100% ShopClues buyback or 100% points given. Okay, it's just like a one-on-one free, but it gives you a perceived value that I paid 100 rupees and I got 100 ShopClues points, so I can again use up 100 rupees. It's not like that. You get the perception that you are using 100 rupees again, but the actual cost to them is only the cost that is actually being spent by ShopClues. So they have already recovered their full cost of the first product, and on that they are giving you a second chance to buy a similar amount product free. So their actual cost of acquisition is only the cost spent on that product which you are taking next. And yes, as someone pointed out here, you could have some cost of campaign also that you could add to this, but that's how you see it, that's all. Okay, I think that part of the learning is very important for all of us around here, that when you give your own product, it is the cheapest customer acquisition cost. So you'll see all these schemes all around where Airtel will say 1000 minutes free, where they'll say 1500 SMS free. Okay, so a free SMS is maybe less than half a paisa cost for them, but you get a perceived value of 1 rupee. So the customer acquisition costs of many companies are actually much lower than what we think they are. The customer acquisition cost generally goes up high only because of the marketing expense, because that is actually paid out. But anything which is not paid out is not a cost. So please remember this when we look at this. Only the actual cost spent, and this will be very important when you do your group assignment. You'll have lots of places there where you will consider that as a cost. That's not so. So for example, suppose a bank says that if you open the account, I am giving you 50 rupees credit. You have all these new wallet banks and mobile wallets coming. So they're saying we are giving you 50 rupees credit. Does that mean that it is a 50 rupees cost? Or let me put the question differently. When is that 50 rupees, complete 50 rupees a cost? Exactly. When you use it, when you withdraw it, when you buy something. But there is again, this answer is not complete. This answer is not complete Because if you put a restriction that this 50 rupees can only be used on services of the same bank, then effectively again the cost of acquisition is only the cost of those services. Those 50 rupees cannot be withdrawn. Those 50 rupees cannot be spent on services of anything outside the bank. Then those 50 rupees are not completely spent. They are only to the extent that, so, you have this example of payback points, you have this example of shuttle. That's a good example that I recently saw. Shuttle has come out with, they have these buses, small buses, which run point to point, and people go in that. So what they did is first they gave it free, and then when people downloaded the app, they put, they credited points to them for free. So suppose I give you 100 points, and in every trip I reduce 50 points and assume every point is 1 rupee. So effectively the customer believes that he got 100 rupees, but he can't spend that anywhere outside except for those bus trips. What can he basically do out of that? He has got 2 trips free. So what is the cost of acquisition for the service provider? So the cost of acquisition for the service provider is just the provision of 1 seat for 2 trips. And that entire 100 rupees has been taken back by the service provider just by giving that 1 seat for 2 trips. So this is an important learning which all of you need to keep in mind always, and which is why you will always find that when any deal is struck, people give any sort of payout from incoming money but refuse to give even small amounts from outgoing money. So if I go for a marketing deal and I have a channel partner, that channel partner tells me that you give me only, you give me 10 rupees per lead and I'll give you 1000 leads. So the companies are more happy in saying, instead of taking 10 rupees into 1000, that is 10,000, you take 50,000 from me, but you give me only 5 assured customers. So I am willing to pay you 10,000 per customer, immaterial of whether you take out 100 customers out of your 1000 leads and convert them and give them to me. But I am not willing to pay you 10 rupees per lead. The simple reason is, when it's a converted customer, that channel will give you money taken from the customer and take a commission out of that. So you have generated a revenue out of which you've given an acquisition cost. Therefore, your CLV is going to move in the positive direction. But when you spend on lead and you don't know whether it will ever get converted, you only have cost and cost there, but no revenues. So this is why you will find that these sort of decisions are also taken, where people are not happy in paying that 1 rupee per click or a 10 paisa per click or a 20 paisa per click, but are willing to easily shell out 20,000 rupees also for an assured customer. Okay, so I have now finally completed everything I had to communicate. All concepts with respect to this course have been done. You have this assignment, which is the individual assignment based on the BCG matrix. And then you have the group assignment, which you have to give presentations next Saturday. So that is where we stand. I have used up my 2 hours for today. Next class is only presentation. For the group assignment, which sheet? No. I don't know where this leads to. This may be the group feedback form. So I don't know what this is. This is Career Foundation Buddy Group, sorry. You would have made your groups for marketing, which was there somewhere. Let me see if I have it. The marketing groups were made earlier. We'll share that. Yeah, that's the marketing groups. And next Saturday, we only have presentations. Okay, feel free to ask me questions anytime on the WhatsApp. If separate groups want to make separate WhatsApp groups and include me there, I'm available. Since it's the same assignment, the same case study for all groups, so preferably discussions should be within groups and not between groups, so that when the presentations happen, everybody is able to see various methods on the same data and case study that different people have used, different groups have used with their own logic. That way the learning will be high, because in marketing, hundreds of people can give hundreds of logics, and that's what is the final part that we want to see in the last presentations. So if there are any final questions, I can take that. Otherwise, we can wind up for today, and you can have a hard working weekend. Okay, so I hope you have a very hard working weekend, and before the end of this year, we will finish this course. Let it not go on to the next year. Submission, I don't require group submissions before the presentation. If you want to share something with me, it's okay, as long as I will initiate that on the WhatsApp. As long as you tell me you're presenting, I will allot you a slot. And after the presentation is over, you can, by Sunday, any one group member can put up the presentation. I will be doing the grading of the presentations during the presentation. So group assignment grading will be during the presentations. 32% weightage for the group assignment and 17% to each individual assignment. So please give the group assignment adequate time and effort. Okay, so thank you very much, and lots of work coming up on this weekend.